Welcome to Building Credibility and Thought Leadership. So we believe that you need to be connected, you need to be visible, and you need to be valuable to be a thought leader in your industry. And we every Wednesday we help you align with that thought leadership. And also, if you need to know more about how do you actually grow in that key person of influence, or even high performance leadership, where you can master leadership for exponential impact. Just connect with me. You'll have my link at the bottom to book a call with me, and I'll share my experience being in marketing, being in sales, being in leadership, starting non-for-profits, and having that impact in the society, right? Especially leaving behind corporate, knowing that I'm not making an impact, and then giving it back, working with an organization that is all about impact and making a difference. And also, this one of the most important pillars in this group is all about that we can create a lasting impact, right? So it's all about that. So hence, it's so important. And I know you've all been waiting impatiently for today's guest, and today's guest is a very, very dear friend of mine, and especially we go a long way, especially through decades of business success and wealth building expertise. So for these past decades, Ziggy has been at the forefront at revolutionizing professional services, right? So redefining how people can access financial guidance and create Corp, right? So please, everyone who's watching on live, on the live stream or on hashtag replay, just give a big round of applause. Ziggy shares his wealth of knowledge on our topic today, which is creating legacy wealth. So get ready, get a pen, paper handy, and get ready to shift your mindset, unlock your financial potential, and start building a legacy that lasts. So over to you, my friend, for sharing all the knowledge around creating legacy wealth.
Well, Jobby, thank you for having me, and thanks for your kind words. And certainly, we've known each other for a long time, all the way back but when we first met at Positive Media. And I want to honor you in what you're doing as well, and what you're doing is having an impact. And I love this word legacy because it means so much, but it's because it's one of those words that can become sort of too common. I think tonight, if the what wealth really is, when we talk about wealth, there's a lot of a lot of connotations around it. It's usually referred to when you're speaking in the area of finance and money. When I started 3P, my background is in accounting and tax, and then I moved into financial planning. When I started 3P, I thought, well, what do I want to call it? I wanted to give it a name that had purpose, and so the 3P was born, and we have a passion for people to prosper in all areas of their life. And so the wealth formula, I believe, is about a healthy lifestyle, financial independence, and strong relationships. And I think if you've got those three areas as good as possible, because we all know there's no guarantees, things will go wrong. But if you work on those three areas, you're minimizing the risk of things going wrong. So that to me is true wealth. And then you take it a step further, and you can start really talking about your purpose, which is a lot of what likes to talk to, and sort of what legacy do you want to leave, which is where it leads us to tonight. So just a couple of things. The last 34 years of working as an accountant and now a financial planner, I've found that most busy professionals, have three problems. They just have no direction. There's no plan in place, and they don't know who to speak to and who to trust. Okay, this is a real issue in financial planning because it's been littered with people that have done the wrong thing. And so, it's hard to find good people in this space, people that are knowledgeable, that have the required experience, qualifications, and technical knowledge as well. And so as a result of having these three problems, which is no direction, no plan, don't know who to speak to and who to trust, I've found that there's a few common mistakes that they make. So the first mistake is that they listen to family members, know that everyone's circumstances are different. Everyone's risk profile is different. Everyone's goals and objectives are different. There's another mistake that they make, and that's procrastination. And so they tend to put things off. People know that they can be doing better than what they're doing. I know I must speak to someone. I'll speak to someone. I'll get around to it. And of course, people procrastinate because they've got the three problems, right? Now, who do I speak to about this? Oh, well, I'll look into it and eventually I'll do it. So procrastination is a big issue. The other one is people go online. There's a million people on YouTube or online that'll tell you how to create wealth. Many are good, much more are bad. Lots of people that are unqualified, lots of people who have a particular bias towards an area. So if share markets are doing really well, you'll get people that will try and sell you some trading software. If the share markets aren't doing that well and property's the way to go, it'll be out there. Nothing wrong with either of those two. It looks like, and what is in your best interest is a completely different thing. The other thing I see is people make knee-jerk decisions, and what I see there is people thinking, okay, well, another property must be the answer, or a self-managed super fund must be the answer. I've got to get to this financial independence. I just don't know if I'm actually, going to get there. And so mistakes are made, proper due diligence is not done, and therefore that sort of puts people behind. Which brings us now to the things that I think need to be considered when you are looking at creating legacy wealth. Because the one thing that is missing, that my experience, so I've got a lot of new clients, a lot of new people that I see, they come to me for financial advice. And in the majority of situations, I see busy professionals or people just generally who have either, maybe have done well in the sense that they've got a home, they've still got a mortgage on it, maybe you've got some pay off the debt. Do I put money in super, or do I invest money outside of super by way of an investment property or maybe a share portfolio? And so whilst they seem to have all the ingredients and they seem to be building and growing, there's one thing that I've seen that's always missing, and that's a plan. There's no structure, right? They don't have clarity. They don't actually know, well, what do I know? This is why I'm doing what I'm doing. There's no plan behind it they can then implement, and therefore they can make these knee-jerk decisions or be taken by the wind, so to speak, by the latest craze or the latest podcast or someone online that promises all sorts of wealth through a variety of different strategies. So what do we? Well, I mean, if you're talking legacy, you're talking about things that are left for the next generation when we're talking about wealth, right? Legacy as a general term just means, hey, that person left a legacy, right? They did something that was special. They left something that was special. They had an impact. And so when we're talking about legacy wealth, we're just talking about the transfer of assets, right? So these assets that are passed down to, from one generation to the next. And what tends to happen is you have this longevity in these assets. So the assets that, people build can pass on, and then there's longevity because there's enough assets there that hopefully are managed properly by the next generation and continue on. Not always the case, as we've seen. You would have come across stories where people have created wealth only for it to be completely destroyed, by generation. There are a couple examples, granted, but I think it gives us an idea about some of the thinking that's going on today in terms of legacy and the transfer of wealth. There's two organizations that I've really had an impact on me in terms of stand out in my mind. One of them is called Entrust, and that's a charity, partners with over 50 organizations across Africa, Southeast Asia, and India. And another one is Payton Foundation. So Entrust, just quickly, there was a guy who had a big trucking company in Queensland. And from memory, I think the figure was about $20 million. Once he sold his business and this wealth was created, that $20 million went to and set up Entrust. And so Entrust as a foundation, sure, asks for donations still, but all the admin, everything of the running costs of the charity are completely covered, because there's this wealth that's been invested that generates this income. And that Payton Foundation is the other one. So Jason Payton is Payton Capital is a private credit funds management firm. And so when Jason Payton set that up, the family, because there's a big family involved, private assets, 20% of the shareholding was allocated to Payton Foundation. So you had the business part, 80% ownership there, and then 20% of the funds management firm was owned by this foundation. And that foundation, again, sponsors, helps charities from all over Africa. It's got some amazing programs. And what they do is they also partner with other charities in Australia to help fund various foundations. Foundations would have certainly benefited, but that would have been it. There wouldn't have been another $20 million, for example, for that to be used. And so that $20 million has now created a long-term income stream to fund so many things. So if you could just get your thoughts around, legacy wealth on this theme that Job is on, of making an impact, and legacy X and the legacy multiplication, then, as we all know, it all begins up here. And we don't always get it right. All right. Just because we're talking about this today, there's times where you're just like, oh man, this whole thing is hard. And yes, it is hard. There's nothing that's easy, but certainly if there's something that's worth doing, it's lasting and it creates impact. So there's 3 points that I want to leave you with that I think are important principles when it comes to investing, when it comes to considering your resources and what you do with. One of the things that has changed that I've seen with generations that have come behind me. So I'm 53. So generations that have come behind me, and to a certain degree has had also impacted me a little bit, is we want things very quickly at our fingertips. Things that be very quickly. We want answers. We want solutions. We don't have as much patience like we used to. Okay. And that's because we can get results fairly quickly. We can get things very quickly. But I want to encourage you today, and just your investments and your strategies and plans, you've got to have a long-term view in mind, and you have to play the long game. When I was growing up, I remember we were told about the story of the tortoise and the hare, and I always wanted to be the hare. I was a fast runner when I was younger. I had a lot less. I was a lot leaner then, but I always wanted to be a hare because I thought that the hare. Now that story, as you know, it's the end because it's slow and steady and consistent. So I want to encourage you that when you're looking at your strategies, whether it be just investing in your own finances, whether it be the strategies that you're putting together for your business or even for work, if you're employed, then take the long-term view, map that out and plan it out, and just consider the long-term, because the short-term, it's just, if I was to tell you some stories of, when I was in my 20s and I was going to make my first million, then the second and the third and the fourth, it never happened. I chased it and, we went after it, but being young and silly and wanting things rather than really going for the long term. Diversification is another one. So when you're looking at investing, whether you're looking at, what you're doing in looking at sort of maybe creating multiple income streams or investing in different risk. When you have a couple different baskets of, they say that don't put all your eggs in one basket, because all the eggs in one basket will break. Okay, there's a lot of those eggs that will break. And again, if you've got the long term, then there's no issue with having multiple baskets and having eggs in different baskets. If you're looking for a short-term gain, then naturally you got to put all your eggs in one basket and off you go. Problem with that strategy, it's sort of got a zero or hero type approach. So you're either going to make it big or you're going to lose a fair bit, and then you're starting from, starting from a little ways back. Now, sometimes that's okay, right? Sometimes it's okay. It doesn't mean just because, certainly in business, if you're an entrepreneur, things don't always go right. But I think it is important to have a strategy that works alongside what you're doing from a business perspective, and have this long-term might go for it. Then I would just say, just make sure that you're investing an amount that if it went to zero, it's not going to impact your long-term strategy. So diversification is key. So when we're talking about investments, naturally, you've got different asset classes. You have property, and within property, you've got three types of property, right? You've got residential, commercial, and industrial. And then you've got shares, and in shares, you've got Australian shares and international shares. So whether you're investing in the Australian stock market or internationally and getting access to Amazon and Google and Meta and all these companies. And then you've got cash, then you've got term deposits, then you've got government bonds, then you've got alternative asset classes like there's investments in infrastructure. You can invest in airports, have through various unit trusts. So diversification is key, because what it does is that all those asset classes have their own cycles. The economy has a cycle. Those asset classes have a cycle. And therefore, when a cycle is, say, had a good run up and it's on a bit of a downward trend, then the other asset classes typically tend to prop things up. So that way you're able to reduce the level of risk. So what we mean by risk is we're talking about level of volatility, right? We're not talking about speculation where you're investing in something that could either go, zero or hero. No, we're talking about volatility. So if you invest in, for example, the share market, you're going to get volatility. You invest $10,000 today, tomorrow it could very easily be worth $10,500, but it also can easily be worth $9,500. So it's very volatile in the short term. If you have the long term, that's where the gains are to be made. And so diversification just means you are reducing the overall risk of your assets and your returns over the long term. Remember, we've got that long term horizon. What is long term? I hear someone ask. Long term is sort of 5-7 years plus. Okay, so short term is within the next 12 months. Medium term can be within the next sort of 1 to 5 years, but long term is 5 to 7 plus. So you really need that time frame. So an example of, let's say you have $100,000 and you say, look, this is my deposit for a home and we're going to buy a home in 12 months time. Well, you wouldn't be putting that $100,000 in the share market because that 100,000 could be worth 90,000 in 12 months time. Could be worth 110,000 and you'd be happy. You're not going to be happy if it's worth 90. So in that case, given that short-term time frame, you really want to have that secure, and you'd probably just stick that in a term deposit. So diversification is key. Or one service that's being offered, but it's multiple. It's an ecosystem of products and services that are being offered at different pricing points. Okay, that's very important. And so if you have this strategy that then where you've got a variety of different income streams, again, that further diversifies your finances. But what it also does from a overall income perspective is that you're generating more income as well. And that income, if you're continuing to reinvest capital, you might be even reinvesting that income back into those investments. That just has this compounding effect where it just grows and grows and grows. And then you get to the ripe old age of 65, 67, then you retire, and then you do what I hope to be doing, which is going to the Greek islands, Jobby.
Absolutely right, and you have your annual trips normally to the Greek islands.
I try.
And it's just amazing seeing you kind of shine there and see your daily vlogs.
One principle that I haven't covered, I think, are very important. But I think if there's one, the most important for me is to have a plan.
Mm.
Right? What does Stephen Covey say? Is it Stephen Covey that says if you fail to plan, you plan to fail? Is it Stephen Covey? I think it's Stephen
Yes,
Covey, right?
yes.
And the other thing is beginning with the end in mind. He says the
Mm.
same thing as well. And so if for example, and one of the first questions I ask clients is, when do you want to be financially independent? Because that's a different question than when do you want to retire.
Mm.
Uh, Retirement has connotations attached to it, and it's usually referred to as I'm going to stop working, I'm going to sit on the couch, have my cup of tea or coffee, and no, and I think a lot more professionals these days I'm seeing that are working longer. One, because they enjoy things. Two, because they're having a lasting impact. They're doing something that's purposeful. And three, they can. It's just community. They're involved, and it's good health. And maybe they work, a couple of days a week, and then have work for a lot longer. But I mean, 1.6 to $2 million in investment assets that will generate an income stream. So one cousins in Natalie's up from north. We're going to spend X amount of time up north. Katina's from, she's from one of the Greek islands. So we've got Rellos there. And so you map that out and plan that out. And then it's all mapped out. You don't have to worry about, you booked your flights and you booked this and you put the accommodation. You don't have to get there at 11 o'clock at night and go, where are we staying? Oh, I don't know. We'll just play it by. No, you need to plan. And it amazes me how many people, when it comes to their finances, just don't plan things. And I'm not talking that you have to be ultra detailed, but there's got to be some plan in place.
Mm. Well, that's just amazing. I can feel your passion, feel your energy, Ziggy, especially because you're passionate about this. And I love that, having a plan. And it brought me back a couple of years ago when me and Cheryl, we sat and you asked me that question: when do you want to retire? How much do you need? And that's exactly that. And hence the reason why I really want to bring to this platform people that I trust, people that really is kingdom focused as well, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And this is where we start, right? We plant the flag, especially health, wealth, and relationships, right? And have a plan. And please reach out to Ziggy. I would highly recommend. Just grab a coffee with him. He'll just share his experience. But if you can come out of that session with a better plan for your financial health, I think you're winning. So thank you so much, Ziggy, from this Legacy X family, that you're part of the family, and would love for people to reach out to you, but also keep sharing your experiences and learning as well. So
yeah, I love it.
and we might have a retreat, a Legacy X retreat.
Sounds good.
You never know. So thank
Sounds
you.
good. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it, bro.
Really appreciate it. Thanks so much, buddy. And I'll see you next week of our amazing Legacy X Leave a Legacy live stream. Thank you. See you all.